Let's get reaction to this now with the Home Secretary, Priti Patel. Morning to you, Home Secretary. First of all, have you seen the scenes in Bristol last night, and what's your reaction to what happened?
Well, I saw some of the scenes, as I did on Sunday evening as well, and protests are unlawful right now. And quite frankly, we have just seen more criminality and violent behaviour, which is simply unacceptable.
So if the coronavirus bill passes tomorrow, then protests will be allowed from Monday. Are you happy for people to protest on issues that they feel strongly about from next week?
Well, I think, first of all, look, we live in an open society and a democracy, so the principle to protest and have your voice heard is absolutely crucial. But there is no acceptability at all for criminality, thuggish behaviour, and the type of violent scenes that we have seen over recent evenings, including the most appalling assaults and criminal attacks on police officers. There's a fundamental difference between the two.
Also a fundamental difference here, between what you're talking about there and what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who want to protest peacefully. Are you happy for people who feel strongly about an issue to protest, express their views peacefully from Monday?
Well, peaceful protest is totally different from obviously what we've seen in Bristol. We live in a democracy and obviously we uphold the right to protest. But as I would say, we are in a pandemic, and I would urge everybody to continue to follow the rules and guidance and just continue to be incredibly conscientious, as the British public have been. We've seen that throughout the last 12 months.
From Monday, can you tell us what conditions will be attached to any planned protest? That's something that I think there's not much clarity on at the moment.
Well, when it comes to conditions, and it's not just about protests, it's actually in relation to coronavirus guidance. We work with the police constantly, so NCPC, to put forward the guidance that go to police officers. So we will continue to do that. So at this stage, I'm not going to come on and tell you what the details of the guidance are. We're working with police and on that.
Well, I can tell you just a few moments ago, we had the National Chair of the Police Federation on this programme, John Apter, who, I'll just give you his direct quote. He said, the police at the moment are doing a near-on impossible job. He's actually asking you for clarity. He says the police need clarity on the job that they're doing at the moment, and the public need clarity from the government about what they're allowed to do.
Well, on that, when it comes to policing in particular, we work with the National Police Chiefs Councils when it comes to the guidance and the advice that goes to police officers. That has been the case for the last 12 months, and that continues. We speak to them on a near daily basis here, and we work with the police on everything in terms of coronavirus guidance and regulations, which of course then goes down to chief constables in terms of how forces themselves operationalise, because obviously they are operationally independent from the government in terms of how they bring in the rules and the regulations. And of course, every time the guidance changes from government, the public are informed about this through the regular means, through broadcasts, through gov.uk, and we have done that consistently at any change that takes place with the coronavirus regulations.
OK, we're on BBC One right now. It's 7:30 on Wednesday morning. Could you, at this point, tell us, broadcast how the general public will get information, will find out about how they are allowed to peacefully protest from next week?
Well, absolutely. That'll be announced in terms of the coronavirus guidance itself. So this isn't just about rules to go out and protest. This will be any changes that come forward from government will be broadcast, whether it's on your programme, but also through gov.uk, and the way in which we've consistently been sharing and communicating messages to the public.
OK, let's move on, shall we? Let's talk a little bit about the policing bill, which we know is due tomorrow. Some of the Bristol protests, in fact, have been about this bill and about how it's going to change the way people can gather from next week. And one of the things it's going to do is it's going to allow the police to set noise limits for demonstrations, to break them up if they get too loud. Now, how are the police going to decide when a demonstration gets too noisy?
Well, first of all, this policing bill is incredibly important for a number of reasons. It will protect the public. It will reform the criminal justice system. It will ensure that there are tougher sentences for some of the most abhorrent crimes. And it will protect the police with regards to the introduction of the police covenant. So this is an important bill. Many of these elements in this particular bill were voted for at the general election when we went to the country in December 2019. Now, with regards to protest and public order, the public order legislation is out of date. It was put together in the 1980s, and this is the opportunity, working with policing, I should emphasise this, we've been working with the police on the development of this draft bill to look at the changes that need to be brought in to help the police, actually, when it comes to management of protests and engagement with protesters, but also to deal with static protests and also noise.
Okay.
Now, of course,
okay. Sorry to interrupt you there. The question was actually about how will the police decide when a demonstration becomes too noisy?
Well, of course, I was about to come on to this. When it comes to noise in particular, the police will make judgments and they'll have guidance and frameworks around the impact that noise has, not on one individual, but across communities. And these are important changes that, will be discussed and consulted upon as this bill passes through Parliament. And the police, of course, are working with us in the development of this particular piece of legislation. And much of what we are speaking about around changes to protest have come to us by the police to government.
OK, let's stick with the police, shall we? Police, obviously, frontline key workers. Only 20% so far have been vaccinated. All 43 branches of the Police Federation in England and Wales are calling for officers to be